else's shoes. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. Empathy is not putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Empathy is hearing their point of view from their point of view. So I hear you say from your point of view, your experience is this. And I can validate for you, I can understand for you how that feels. That is empathy. And good communication expresses that. And then through that, we build trust. We're able to be more vulnerable with each other, which again creates connection. We are able to resolve conflict and talk about hard topics, engage in healthy conversations that we don't disagree. We can disagree with each other a lot, actually, and still have healthy conversations and there's novelty built in there. We're not always meant to agree. We know this in a relationship. If we've been married for a period of time, we know that we're not always going to agree, and it creates, interest. It creates a different point of view. It grows us. It allows us to evolve and grow.
Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist Podcast.
Tune in every Thursday to learn with us as we interview experts.
And laugh with us as we banter about friendship.
And take action by implementing the tools and advice we provide to you each week to level up your personal relationships.
I'm Dana Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger.
We are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Your journey to becoming more supported and connected starts
right now.
Okay, hello and welcome to this mini-series on communication for couples, for relationships. I kind of want to do this little mini-series for a number of reasons. I'm not going to say it's the number one reason, but it's definitely amongst the top reasons that couples come into my office and Dana's office looking for support in their relationship. So there's many reasons that communication breaks down. I also want to say this. People come in and that's what they cite as their communication is the reason that they're here to see me. But often it's not actually the reason. They're just not sure what the reason is. So there's a thing behind the thing behind the thing, like I always say. People come in and they say, we're here and ask them what their goals are for therapy. And they'll say, if we just would have better communication, our relationship would be great. And that could be true, but that's also not always true. There's many reasons that communication breaks down and many reasons why relationships are breaking down. For example, there may be, unresolved trust, for example. There might be a difference of perceptions, which happens all the time. We all think that we come in with this idea that we see the same thing or experience the same thing the same. And of course, we all know that we don't. There is a point of view that we each have that's unique. And then our perception, of course, is affected by every single belief, emotion, experience, memory, et cetera, we have up until that very moment in time. But what I will say is that I observe in my office quite often that people come in and I actually ask them initially to look at each other often and explain to each other what they're doing in my office, what they hope to gain from being in therapy, for example. And I'm watching for lots of things, but of course, looking for their ability to communicate clearly and actually receive their partner's information or be influenced by their partner's information in some way. And we all know what it feels like to be misunderstood or not heard or not validated. We all know that feeling. I don't also want to assume that the person that's listening is doing it on purpose. There's so many reasons that get in the way of their own inability to pay attention, their inability to repeat back what we're saying, their own inability to actively listen or engage in a conversation. And people ask for help with their communication styles for so many reasons, or the communication skills, I should say, for so many reasons. We all know that communication is a fundamental, very important part of any relationship. Even with the animals that I care for on my acreage, they communicate all the time. And it's my job to pay attention to what they're communicating, their cues, their tells, to understand what's happening for them. So with the human animals that I work with, we misunderstand communication for many, many reasons. People have a hard time expressing their emotions. Maybe they didn't learn or have a safe place to express emotions in the past, and so therefore they keep them locked up. People are worried about creating conflict, and so they avoid communication or avoid hard topics. Everyone has different communication styles. We all bring our past experiences, of course, to every encounter. And so if we had an experience with communication in the past where we were shut down, or we were told we were too much, or we were too emotional, or we weren't allowed to communicate, or we're, for 1,000 reasons, we could be poor communicators. Lack of communication, of course, leads to breakdown in relationship. It leads to trust issues. It leads to insecurity. And then we're unable to process or talk about or work or grow on things that are important to us, like our shared dreams and goals, like growing our individual sense of self and growing our relationship, like taking care of our health, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, like growing our intimacy, like growing our trust, parenting, financial. Communication, of course, affects all of these areas of our relationship. So we know what it feels like. I think we all can agree we know what it feels like to not be understood and to have poor communication for 1,000 reasons. I'm not going to go into details in this podcast of all the reasons why communication breaks down. What I want to do is just invite you to assess for yourself why yours might be breaking down or what concerns may be affecting your relationship. What I want to do is just give you some skills and some things to try in these next couple of podcasts that will hopefully influence you and your relationship in a positive way to try different ways to communicate. Again, it's not a one size fits all. Like I say all the time, if this is a concern, seek help, seek somebody else to help you navigate this world of communication. Because when it goes well, man, it can create connection, understanding. The magic. Remember what it feels like to feel validated when someone actually hears you? People love shoes. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. Empathy is not putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Empathy is hearing their point of view from their point of view. So I hear you say from your point of view, your experience is this. And I can validate for you, I can understand for you how that feels. That is empathy. And good communication expresses that. And then through that, we build trust. We're able to be more vulnerable with each other, which again creates connection. We are able to resolve conflict and talk about hard topics, engage in healthy conversations that we don't disagree. We can disagree with each other a lot actually, and still have healthy conversations and there's novelty built in there. We're not always meant to agree. We know this in a relationship. If we've been married for a period of time, we know that we're not always going to agree, and it creates, interest. It creates a different point of view. It grows us. It allows us to evolve and grow. But having good communication in a container of that creates an emotional safety and a space where we can feel vulnerable enough to communicate our truth. So there's 1,000 reasons, the gratitude and appreciation when couples have that moment in my office where they're finally listening to each other and hearing each other. I can see it. I can feel the air shift in the room. There's a gratitude and appreciation and a connection and a vulnerability that happens where they, sometimes for the first time, maybe ever, feel like they've been heard, like truly heard. So that's my goal. That's just kind of what I want to do this little podcast series, just to give you just some skills. This is not a one size fits all for sure, which is why I want to give you a couple different ways to navigate communication. Again, being mindful that there are so many reasons why it breaks down. This is not a blame game. This is a default system. We're often defaulting to old patterns. And so again, I invite you to assess what patterns you're bringing to the table and be compassionate about the patterns your partner might be bringing to the table because of maybe old blueprints, because of stress in their life, maybe financial strains or parenting strains or fears or overload or past trauma, past experiences, etc. Okay, so one of the things I do quite often in my office, if I see individuals sitting in their chairs and their communication is not working, of course, I'm watching for, again, all those cues I mentioned at the beginning. I'm watching for the verbal, the nonverbals, the body language, the way they breathe, the way they hold their face, the way they smile, the way they move their fingers and legs, the way they hold their breath, the sound of their voice, the tone of their voice, the prosody of their voice. There's so many things that I'm paying attention to. And when I see breakdowns, what I have them do is really slow it down. And this exercise that I try with them, it's going to feel like a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. This first exercise is going to feel like a bit of a pain in the ass. But the reason I do it is I want people to slow down their communication, to pay attention to at least some of those, if not all of those things I just mentioned. So I invite you to try this with your partner. I'm going to call this is called the mirroring, I call it verbatim exercise. If it sounds familiar, if you've done any imago therapy, it's a very similar type of therapy that's done in imago, which is the work of Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt, which are the founders of the imago relationship therapy. I'm not imago trained, so this is kind of my version of an active listening skill. But if you've done imago therapy, this is probably going to sound very familiar to you. So I have them first look at each other. So face your partner eye to eye, face to face, not side to side, not sitting on a couch beside each other. If you're sitting on a couch, literally turn your bodies and face each other. Better yet, sit on two chairs where you're face to face, eye to eye. So don't do this in the car. That would not be the right time to do this exercise in the car. Face to face, eye to eye. Okay. And I want you to pause first and just, even if you want to close your eyes for a second and just start to regulate, feel your own body. What's your heart rate doing? What's your breathing doing? What are your senses picking up on? And just take a second to regulate your own system. Because we know when we get dysregulated or get stressed, it's hard to communicate. When I get excited or I get emotional, my words, as you guys all know, get really fast and mumble jumble together. So take a second, take a few deep breaths if you want, and then really pause and think, what is the goal? What is the intent of this communication? What is the intent of this dialogue? And of course, the intent, if you're doing it with me, is to practice. We're just doing to practice something. But the intent when we take this into real life is, I really want my partner to hear what I have to say, or I really want to understand what my partner is trying to say to me that I'm not understanding. And let me just say this too. You don't have to agree. It's not the intent is to agree with your partner, or the intent isn't even often to fully appreciate the content. And I'm going to say that here's the truth. My partner, as many of you know, loves sports, any and all sports, but especially football, NFL, American football. And so when he comes home and he's describing and he's so excited and animated about trades that are happening in, his sport world, I will never remember the content or the people's names. Very rarely will I remember a name unless it's someone like Tom Brady or somebody. I don't remember the names of who's getting traded or what. But his animation, I'm paying attention to. He's excited about something. So I'm watching his nonverbals and I'm repeating back, oh, sounds like that was good. Ooh, that sounds like a bad trade. Ooh, sounds like that's going to hurt your team. I'm repeating back what I'm seeing in his nonverbals and in his expressions, not the content. But we're going to get there. That's kind of step 2. I digress. Okay, so face-to-face, eye-to-eye. Take a second, regulate yourself. Ask yourself what your intentions are, and then create a container that we are here to listen to each other in a safe, secure, we are each other's partners. I have your back. We're in this together. We are teammates. So start with that intention. Okay. And then I want you to take turns. So the first person that's going to speak, we're going to call them the speaker. One's going to speak, one's going to listen. And the person speaking, I really want the person speaking to also pay attention to the listening partner's nonverbals. Because the goal of this initially, if I see partners struggling, I have them actually repeat back verbatim what their partner said. And again, there's a reason for that. When I say verbatim, the reason I'm doing that is to slow down the experience so they can actually see how much capacity they have to listen to their partner. I'm also interrupting that rebuttal thing we have. You know how that thing we do when we're listening to our partner or someone talk and we're already in our head rebuttaling what we're going to say next? We're already trying to formulate our own argument, but we're not actually listening to the person speaking because we're in our own heads. So when I do the verbatim exercise, I'm interrupting those patterns. So start with that. Have your partner speak, have the speaker speak, and the listening partner is going to listen. And when they've heard enough that they can't verbatim back what the other person said, just say stop. So what I've heard you say so far is, and then word for word, don't ad lib, don't paraphrase, don't add in your own feelings. I know this is so hard because you want to say back what you're thinking or your experience or your perception. This is not the time or the place. We're going to get there, I promise. I want you to just pause and verbatim back what your partner said, word for word. And if your partner said too many words that you don't understand or you forgot, just apologize. Sorry, can you say that again? Can you repeat? Sorry, I didn't quite understand you. I didn't quite hear you. I didn't quite get all of that. Can you say that again? And then the speaker says it again. And you say, okay, what I've heard you say so far is this. Yes. Okay, continue. And you keep doing that back and forth until the speaker's finished everything that they need to say. And then at the end of that, I'll often have the partner that's listening then paraphrase back. Not yet give their 2 cents or their opinions yet. Just say, so overall, what I've heard you say is this. And if I want to add in a little empathy, that's a great time to say, so my understanding of your experience is this. It sounds like you're feeling like this. That's where you can start to add in a little bit of your own perception of their experience, not your own experience yet. This is where validation comes into play. We're trying to validate the speaker's experience from their point of view, not ours. And again, we make space here if we get it wrong for the speaker to say, no, that's not quite right. Or no, I didn't say that. Or no, I didn't mean to say that. Or maybe, no, you misinterpreted me. Okay, pause, say it again. And we keep going until the speaker has exhausted their story, till they're finished with their story, and that they feel fully understood, heard, and validated. That's important. And then when you're done, then you reverse roles and now switch. And now you, the listener, gets to become the speaker and say all of your point of view. And now the speaker becomes the listener and do the same thing. Verbatim back what your partner is saying. Verbatim again for those couple of reasons, like I said, interrupting that rebuttal process and engaging in actual paying attention, listening, and assessing your capacity for how much information you can retain. And at the end of all that, paraphrase what you heard and then give empathy, understanding, validation. It sounds like your experience is this. Did I get that right? And you're really looking for, did I fully understand you? Do you feel like I fully understood your point of view? This is going to create a container that hopefully feels safe, hopefully playful. I know it's a pain in the ass way of communicating for now. I don't want you to communicate this on a regular basis because that would be really annoying, but I want you to practice this as a skill set to try to learn things differently. So how might this sound, for example? So let's say you're sitting with your partner, and let's pick a neutral topic like work. Let's say your partner is having a struggle at work and they say to you, okay, hey, my partner's name is Jay. Hey, Jay, I wanted to talk to you about work. and I start sharing my concerns with my boss, let's say, or my coworkers, or whatever the experience is at work, and I'm watching my partner nod and smile, but when I see their face glaze over, I feel like maybe they've heard enough. I'll say maybe, what did you hear so far? Or vice versa, the listener saying, hey, pause, Alicia, what I've heard you say so far is this. And they're telling me back what I've heard. And I'm nodding and smiling, yes, or no, it's not quite what I said, or it's not what I meant. Let me try that again. It also is making me get really clear with what I'm trying to say, getting really clear with my thoughts, my intentions of what I'm trying to get across. This is also a good time, if you're doing this with your partner, to practice the skill of, I don't want your advice or feedback. I just want to vent about my work, for example. And then when I feel heard and understood, we switch gears again, and then I listen to your point of view. Maybe it was to do with your work, or maybe it's to do with my boss that you actually hate, or who knows, maybe it's to do with parenting. The content is not important at this point. We're just practicing active listening. That's it. For the goal of creating an atmosphere, creating a container of mutual understanding, safety, security, empathy, connection. And then when you're finished, get curious about that. Maybe you can ask yourself some questions like, how was that for me? How did I feel when I expressed my feelings, my thoughts, my experiences, my perceptions without being interrupted? How was that for me to have my partner actually engage in active nodding, smiling, active listening to my point of view? Did I see that reflected on their face? Were they mirroring my experience best they could on their face, in their body language, in what they said back to me? Did I notice any emotional triggers or reactions in my own body while I was being mirrored? Did I feel appreciation and gratitude? Did I feel validation? What was my experience hearing my partner say back my experience in their own words? First in the verbatim that they actually listened to me, but then when they paraphrased. Did I feel understood? Did I feel heard? How did I respond when they didn't get it right? How did I respond when they misunderstood? Did I adjust calmly? Did I make adjustments appropriately? Did I get reactive? Again, this is not judgment. This is just really a chance for you to self-assess and notice the parts of you that got triggered, the parts of you that felt validated, the parts of you that felt connected. Just noticing how this experience was for you as the speaker. And then as the listener, how well did I listen? How well was I able to stay present and actually engage and mirror back my partner's experience? Did I feel like my face, my body, my gestures were mirroring my partner's experience? Did I and was I presenting empathy, understanding, validation? Did I notice any nonverbal cues my partner was portraying? Did I express those nonverbal cues back to them? Was I able to? Was I confused by them? What did I learn about my partner's inner world while I was mirroring them? Did my partner express any challenges or discomfort or concerns about how I supported them or mirrored them in this process? And then together, what can we do to improve and deepen understanding, to deepen our connection, our communication in the future? I sometimes have partners too, when they're doing this exercise, pause if the content seems like it's too hot or it's not really working, or we want to just try something else and try to deepen their connection. I'll have them do a mirroring exercise non-verbally. So I'll have them, same thing, eye to eye, face to face, and look at each other and just notice where your partner's going. Notice their eyes, notice their breath, notice their nervous system, those micro moment reflections in their face and body, and see what influence you can have over your partner in that moment in time. And again, you can play with this. There's no wrong or right way to do this other than we don't threaten each other. And maybe I'll say, can you flirt with your partner non-verbally, with your face, your eyes? Can you create safety for them? If they're looking vulnerable or they're looking emotional or looking distressed in any way, can you create safety? Can you send them a container, a space that's big enough for whatever they have going on in their body? Can you send them love non-verbally? Can you send them, I get you, I've got you? And can you reflect back, I hear you, thank you. I feel safe and seen by you. There's all kinds of ways. So I just want to open the door to this idea of mirroring exercise. Play with it, make it your own. Again, you can Google the way the Imago therapy lays it out. You can use some of the techniques I've given you here. But this is supposed to be a space to practice this technique of active listening and see what it feels like for you. And see if any of these techniques or any of these skills or anything you learned in this exercise will help your communication, help deepen your relationship with your partner. I hope this is helpful for you guys. I hope this new way of communicating, understanding, listening, paying attention, reflecting each other can be a real beginning space for mutual respect, understanding, intimacy, connection in your relationship. I'd love to hear your feedback. Let me know how it goes. And I'm looking forward to meeting you right back here with the next episode in our mini-series on communication.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.